What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here. Billy Schmid joining me from 97.3 The Game. It's Carry the G Radio, the podcast. Billy, it's draft week. How you holding up?
I'm doing good. That's a good way of asking it. Holding up. Just
Holding up.
sifting through all the stuff, which you'll get from 32 teams.
Right.
But hey, man, I'm not going to say that I'm resting up because there's time to rest in July before we
Right.
get a training camp.
Please, sir. This is the thick of the offseason. Plus, hell, you got a gig that you have to cover the other sports. Like you have the Bucks in the playoffs and stuff. So
Better believe it. And the Brewers are kicking ass and taking names.
How
Bucks
about
are
my
into the playoffs. That's what I'm
Brewers?
talking
Come
about.
on. Yeah, it's a good time.
I'm
It's a good
working on my
time.
four-seam fastball for you next.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Gotta love it. You gotta love Brian Gutekunst getting in front of a microphone earlier today and saying absolutely nothing with thousands and thousands of words. I mean, I thought that was a pretty impressive outing from the general manager.
He can walk circles around politicians, Nags. I mean, like it's impressive stuff what he can do. However, I think that there are like just little bits and pieces that you can take from and that are always fun to call back to at the end of the day because people are lying, but that's also the cliche that we say. A lot of times they're just saying what everybody else says across the league. And that's one of the funniest parts of cliches in the NFL on draft season.
The parroting season.
Dude, they're classics.
Lion season.
And everybody fires them off.
Although, but I will say though, but you can also, to your point about being able to go and point back to it, you can always find like narrative threads through draft season and or the draft itself, where at the end of the draft, you go back and you look at what Brian said about situations or what they like or whatever, and it's like he was telling the truth. Like he literally just laid it out there for you, and people are like, "Oh, it's nothing," and blah blah blah. Which obviously he's not going to tip their hand in any real way, but it's not like he's up there like completely just spinning yarns. He is telling you like the overriding thing that I got from this press conference was something that he's talked about each and every time he's been in front of the media this offseason. He wants competition up and down the roster. He is not afraid to pull the trigger on not only all 11 selections that he has as we sit here right now, but he's talking about, hey, let's get a few more. Let's drop down a few times and get 13, 14, 15 dudes.
Yeah, in Nags, I wonder if that's part of what he's learned from being in the job of the last couple of years.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I think so. I very much agree with that.
Like that's been a little bit of a fundamental shift. He is moved in the first round of 5 of the 6 drafts.
All but one, I believe, right.
But also look at the ones that he's done now since going up to get Love. Most of it's acquiring more.
Yep.
And saying, hey, there's nothing wrong with 6 guys in the top 130. Sure, do we only have 4 spots legitimately that we think those guys can play? If we only have 4 spots, that means that the lower part of our roster is really, really good.
You're only raising the floor.
And we validate it. Exactly. Yep. So I think that part of it has been unique to, not saying all guys don't change and learn.
Right.
It's unique about this situation because he's obviously had time to breathe in the role. And not that he hasn't had success. He's gone to 2 different, multiple NFC title games. Like it's been a good run. However, a lot of GMs, I think, in his role don't get to feel like they've made some mistakes and then have a second act in the same building with the same operation. And that's what's been really cool.
The patience in Green Bay, Mark Murphy's patience, etc. I agree. And I could not agree more that I do think, especially listening to him today, talk about some of the younger scouts learning lessons along the way about falling in love with players. That's something that I spoke with Richmond Williams about, their director of pro personnel for the draft guide. Something that he talked about learning when he was younger is that you can't fall in love with players. You can't do it. I know we have this image on the outside looking in about scouts pounding the table for guys and things like that, but man, you have got to be dispassionate. And that's why you do all the work you do leading up to the draft, so that when the moment presents itself, and I think he mentioned something along the line, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but like having like the courage or the gumption to just follow the board. There's a reason you spent all these months building the board. Follow it at that moment where something happens and some guy goes and all of a sudden you're presented with 2 options where very similar value, etc. Like, you don't want to be making snap decisions in that instance. You want to follow your board.
Yeah, and you become more confident in it when you do it more, right? Like
Right.
you reps obviously give you more confidence in it. But like being able to admit, Hayes in the barn, fellas. We're 3 days away
Mhm.
from the draft.
Right.
We'll have a couple conversations here tonight, but that board is pretty well set.
Pretty much set. Right.
And I'm confident in how we put it together that come Friday night, like you mentioned, when they got 4 picks on Friday night, where
Mhm.
all of those guys are somewhat expected to be able to play for you, his number of 1.6 players getting re-signed has been ringing in my mind of that's a sad number
It
if that's
is.
how much you're changing it around across the league these days. But you're sitting there and you're exactly right. Being able to know that why we put this together. We trust he's 7 spots better. Let's roll with it and not feel like we can, instead we'll trade back, go
Yeah.
with something we don't necessarily like. I do expect them, and this is the interesting part of it. Maybe I'm overreacting to some things.
Hmm.
I almost could see them trading back more than I could see them now trading up
Totally
into that
agree.
first round.
Totally agree. I just think it makes a world of sense for a guy who wants to breed competition throughout every position group, something he keeps talking about. I buy him at that. Like, I don't think that's a facade. I don't think that's subterfuge,
Yeah.
as he put it with both the pre-draft visits. But I just I get the feeling that he, again, I mean, who knows really where
Hmm.
this lies, but I really think that he buys that, like the idea of, and to your point, he's been in the job for a number of years now, and I think things like trading up the way he did for Amari Rodgers and that flaming out as spectacularly as it did. I think that, I'm not going to say scars you, but I think that leaves a mark. And I think
Yeah,
you learn
totally does.
lessons from that, right? And I don't think it's just that, but I think overall you look at it, and you can go back and look at what Ted did in his time, and
Hmm.
you look at where you get your best return on the decisions you make. And I just think, yeah, you get more bites at the apple, more swings at the plate, talk about it whichever way you want, but more opportunities to add more talent. I just think that's how he wants to continue to build this team.
Yeah, and you got to have buy-in from the coach, right? Like saying you bring
Big
in as
time.
many guys in here, and we're gonna bring. We have a culture of competition.
I think that kind of
It's a great couple C's,
that
right? It's
gelled
good,
for the
good
first time
elimination.
really last season, I think.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad you brought that up because it did feel, because every time there was any kind of feeling of disconnect, obviously Matt's the one who's more available during the season, of course,
Hmm.
right? You hear from the coach almost every day. You don't hear from the general manager except maybe once at the trade deadline. But it did feel like, I'm not going to say chalk and cheese, but it did feel like, okay, Matt was pretty diplomatic every time he talked about the communication between him and Goody. There was certainly, like, you would look at things like, I don't know, who they had spent certain free agency dollars on or who they had selected in the draft. And those guys weren't always getting on the field, especially not right
Hmm.
away.
Yeah.
Whereas last year, it was like, I think obviously partly out of necessity, partly because they wanted to reset the roster as young as they did.
Hmm.
Okay, we're going to go into this with the idea of, like, we're going to live with all the growing pains. We're going to live with young guys on the field. Brian was asked about that a little bit today, but the idea that we know that the only way these guys are going to improve and develop the way we want them to is to play them right away and get through them taking their lumps, so to speak, and learning those lessons. And it feels like there was more, the personnel side and the coaching side were a little more in concert in that regard. And I don't know if that's because Aaron Rodgers is out of the building and they have a different way they want to go about it, trying to
Sure.
develop a whole new window, as it were, with a brand new team. But it felt like that was more in concert in 2023.
Yeah, and that's maybe why the reaction was as confused as it
Right.
was to the Aaron Jones thing, right? Because like
Right.
you're
Right.
finally thinking, sweet,
Here
we're
we
in
are.
lockstep here. We got it dialed in. No, all decisions being made together. And I still do think that one was together, but sometimes you probably need to throw a little bit of a
Well,
shock
shit
to the system.
happens. Shit
It happens,
happens.
right?
It
And
happens quickly.
yeah, and it happens so quickly that you feel like you get markedly better, and that's where the don't fall in love with one player comes
Oh,
to it, and that funnels
yeah.
through the entire building. Love who Aaron Jones is and the player he is, but strictly let's look at the board. Let's look at what we have. You got to change, and that part of it is is what makes the best personnel guys the best personnel guys, being able to be that somewhat disattached, but
Right.
still knowing that, and he said it this today, you know what? Our team came together really, really well.
They
Right.
did.
There's
Right.
innate parts of football that are different than baseball, that are different than certain sports. I think there is always a camaraderie portion to team sports. But this one in particular, when you got guys giving it up for one another, truly playing for one another, you hear everybody say that's what you want to get to because it makes that much of a difference in this game.
It's funny you say the need to be somewhat detached, right? Dispassionate as a personnel guy. It made me think of there's a great line in Thin Red Line, which was a movie that came out probably, I don't know if it was when you were very little or maybe even before you were born, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a great line where the soldiers are complaining that they're not getting enough water up the hill and they're trying to take this bunker, etc. And Nick Nolte is like the commanding officer, and he just stands up like this soldier is telling him this, and he just stands up and goes, "The only time to worry about a soldier is when he stops bitching." And I just think of that when I think about players, the whole narrative of, oh, the Packers, quote, don't treat their veterans well on the way out the door. It's like that means the personnel group is doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
That means they are dispassionate. That means they are looking at it through the correct lens. I'll be concerned about the Packers personnel group when the veterans who have been cut or moved on from are singing the Packers praises, when they're talking about how warm and cuddly it was for them on the way out the door. If you do feel slighted, if you do feel neglected, if you do feel like you're kind of being let go in a very callous way, that probably means that Packers personnel is doing it correctly.
Yeah, and doesn't mean that they're doing it being a dick. It means that they're doing it in a business-like fashion where also
Right.
you feel like you got more to give,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's the year too early before a year too
Too
late kind
late.
of thing.
Right.
And it's interesting. I don't know if you heard this part of it or this quote from throughout the week, but Draymond Green plays for the Warriors.
Right.
Said the organization is going to do right by us. Some organizations care about what's best for the organization. This one's not like that. I don't know how fans are taking that.
Wow. Did
Fans,
he really said that?
yeah, as in a reason why they would give Klay Thompson an additional sum of money
I love
because
this. Okay.
he's won championships, been a great player for them.
I love
That's
I
fascinating.
love this on multiple levels. One, because you said Draymond Green plays for the Warriors. Like, I don't know who Draymond Green is because I am famously not an NBA guy. So
Wanted
you're
to
like,
help you
I
out.
got I
Wanted to
gotta
help
let
you
old
out.
man Nagler know who Draymond Green is. Like, I know who Draymond Green is. Thanks, Billy. But then second, like, I can't believe he said that because that is the sign of an organization. And by all accounts, from everything I've read on Twitter, they looked old and done being eliminated from the playoffs this year. If you're bringing people back in that kind of time, that frame, that's bad management. That's bad team building.
Yeah,
It
and
just
that's
is. Like,
yeah,
you don't reward people for what they've done. You give them contracts for what you expect them to do going forward.
and that is it's perfect. Now, which one's important? Because some people I know that there are some fans that are saying, "Man, we got to do right by these guys." Where's the loyalty in sports anymore, Nags? These guys should be loyal to their
This is
teams. Like
1955. Come
players should be
on.
loyal and the team should be loyal. It's cutthroat, man.
Yeah.
It's big business, and
Big business.
that's coming from a cat who just got 4 years, $100 million,
Right.
well past his prime. Which one would you prefer your organization to be? It
I
hurts
wanted to
in
be
the moment.
cutthroat.
Yep, it'll sting in the moment, but it always pays off.
I remember that during the Aaron Rodgers saga. I said, like, the whole kind of last decade, while everyone was comparing the Packers and the Patriots, etc., because the Patriots won so many championships, Packers won a ton of games, obviously didn't get the rings. But I just had so many people in my mentions and my inbox talking about, oh, the Packers aren't cutthroat enough. And so then when they are cutthroat correctly with their quarterback, everyone got so upset. Those same people got so upset. Like, how dare you? This man gave everything. I'm like, yeah, and we wish him well. We thank him for his service, but it's just time to move on. And that's not personal. That's not like vindictive. That's smart. And I think
Yeah.
overall, not every decision is perfect, not every decision is
Mhm.
correct, but overall, the Packers get it way more right than they do wrong.
And my favorite thing to say right now is two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
It can be the smart thing to do, and like you said, it can sting in the moment.
It can
However,
be a hard thing to do. Right.
at the end of the day, and most of these guys know it at a different time of their lives, it was the right decision.
Yep.
And that does give you, I believe, a different level of respect than like certain organizations that play in Los Angeles that tried to give a thank you goodbye contract to Kobe
Right.
Bryant a couple of years ago, said,
Oh
we
man.
do right by our players.
Yep. Great. And then you can continue to not
It's a
win
stink. Yeah.
games and championships
Yep.
and
Isn't that
whatever.
fun?
I get it, man. It's kind of like, look, there's zero doubt because I know someone somewhere listening to this is like, oh, Nagler's just a homer and whatever. And it's like, yeah, yes, I love the Packers. It's correct. I root for them, but I do think more often than not, they get it right. Now, all of that said, I get the feeling, and it's funny because hearing so much, obviously, during this pre-draft process leading up to this weekend, man, Gutekunst has done a very good job. Speaking of getting it right with these last couple drafts. Now they haven't arrived. Still got lots to do. A lot of ball game left. But the early returns on these last two classes is very good. Like especially last year's class, the immediacy on the return has been great. But we've watched sports now for a long enough time where we know, like, there's no guarantee that they pick up where they left off. We know progression is not linear. Guys step back before they can step forward, etc. I'm fascinated to see again, what kind of competition Brian breeds out of this draft class that is able to immediately contribute, right? And then B, where are the friction points where, man, there are going to be some real tough decisions already before he even drafts a single dude this weekend. You're looking at the guys coming up on the offensive side, big changes coming on defense, who's going to rise, etc. You're going to have this influx of talent competing this summer that I cannot wait to be at training camp this year because you talk about there's a balance of expectation where yes, we want to win a championship. They should be expecting to compete for a championship this year. No question about it. But at the same time, you got to think as a general manager long term, you are bringing in all this competition. Where are those friction points going to be? Is it along the offensive line? Is it in the wide receiver room? Like, is it a corner if they add a body or two there? Like, there are going to be some heated competitions in training camp this summer. Heated.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the other parts of where they go and what they add here shows how cutthroat they're going to have to be, right? Like, we love all the talent in the wide receiver room. There's a reason why I think they could still take one early.
I 100% agree. Yes.
Because they want to add to that competition. And you say friction points, it'll be interesting to see where certain factions start kind of breaking
that
through,
or if they do it all.
Or
right?
if they do it all.
Yes.
Safely assume something will, right?
Yes.
There will be certain ones that do.
It's human nature, right?
It's human nature.
Think.
Yep. And with that many dudes, that much competition, and this much at stake, it will. It'll be great to see the ones that come through it on the other side. But I'm at the Bucs game last night. Christian Watson, AJ Dillon, Jordan Love.
Yep. Romeo Dobbs was there.
Romeo Dobbs, all in one suite. They show all of them. Good chance half those guys aren't on the team next year.
Dude, that's so funny you say that. I had the exact same thought. Like, God, I love that they're boys. I love that they're hanging out. I love the camaraderie. NFL stands for not for long, man.
Yep.
It's crazy. I had that same exact thought. It's true.
Maybe we're just becoming too old and seeing it.
And no, I mean, you could say we're maybe bitter, jaded, whatever, but we've also seen it. We've seen it.
You see it.
You know, you've seen it now.
Yeah,
in
and
the
it's
NFL especially.
And it's part of what makes the league great, Nags. It's part of what makes it great because there is that many great players that are still coming in and the talent is still that high. It will show, though, that the cream will continue to rise to the top. And just because you were a part of it last year doesn't mean you're going to be one of the ones this year. That's one of the reasons why we hopefully are getting to where they want to be.
That's like, when you're comparing draft coverage between Cheesehead TV and 97.3 The Game, you guys
Look at you.
are at You like that segue? You guys are at like 1919 this year, hanging out, moving up in the world. Cheesehead TV, just live streaming, hanging at a bar in Green Bay. You don't
Live
know.
event.
Like there's
That's tough.
expectations and differences between the cream rising and then the dudes who just hang out at bars and live stream. It's like it's very different.
Hold on. She's hold on. Listen, is this man? I think they have a bar at 1919. I think it's also a bar. You sandbagger. This man trying to act like they're not both at bars. There's levels to this stuff.
Okay, all right. I
not
see.
certain
I see
law.
I see how you're trying to like get us back on even footing. You're trying to be a man of the people, trying to be trying to be all humble.
Right.
Come on, how dope is it? You're going to be with Wayne Larrabee
It's awesome.
Thursday night at 1919. Yes, a bar inside Lambeau freaking Field. That's pretty dope, dude. I love
Dude, it's one thing that I do get really, really sentimental about it at certain times throughout the coverage where I'll walk out and like last 3 years we've done it in the office and people are like, oh, that office is terrible. Like I'm 30 feet away from putting this little pad of paper in this door and I walk right over there and the whole bowl is empty.
That's so awesome.
I would dream about this and
God,
think about it
that's
as a
awesome.
kid. So like
That is so
that
awesome.
to me never lost.
No.
And it won't be on Thursday night when we get to be there. And each and every time I'm the one asking the guy that calls Packers games and has called it my entire life what he thinks of the pick and how this guy is going to be scoring touchdowns and hopefully being the reason we deliver a dagger next year. That
Awesome.
part of it is it's second to none, man. It's one of my favorite parts of this kind of stupid life that I'm living right now.
That's so awesome. And of course, you will be hopefully at one point either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday joining us at Cheesehead TV on our live stream. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, I'll be there all 3 days.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're gonna have to kick me off of there, and because
No
Friday
chance.
and Saturday, Nags, we're doing the show. Get this.
Oh, where?
Lambeau Field, favorite place in the world. Any casino, number 2 place in the world.
Right, buttressing against it, right?
Potawatomi Casino.
There you go.
On Friday and Saturday. So I might be joining you while waiting for a hand pay break at a Dragon Link machine.
So
you may not know.
You're going to be there at Potawatomi. Are you going to be like you'll be on you'll see a dude falling precipitously falling in the draft, and then all of a sudden there's a commercial break, so you can run out and lay a bet on homeboy coming to Green Bay. Be like, I'm going to lay whatever that so and so is going to be in green and gold. He's going to be selected here at 41 or whatever. Like that's kind of hot.
That thought has run exactly through my mind.
I know you, Billy.
It is. I've thought about it and know how I can get off of the stage that they're going to have us on at the Rock and Brews bar. Amazing. Across the hallway, and that's where the kiosks are in 3.5 minute break. I think Absolutely. I can do it.
I mean, that's the thing. That is the other thing. You guys take these huge breaks. Like we got to come up with that at Cheesehead TV. I need some like long-term breaks where I can go do stuff because there's like 3 or 4 minutes worth of advertisers that want to spend money with our platform because man, I don't know how I do it every year where I'm like live every minute of the draft for 3 days.
Lord. All right. We have how do you take a break? How do you go to the bathroom?
I don't. Essentially, like sometimes every once in a while I'll just like talk amongst yourselves. I got to run to the bathroom real quick, but I'll just come right back, man. Last year, Banky wasn't even on last year. It was me by myself all 3 days last year.
Dude, that is priceless. I love that. Well, let me know when I can give the reprieve break for when certainly. You can, hit the little Scott Hansen's room because you and Aaron Nagler and Scott Hansen talk about equal footing here.
You can't do it, man. No. Scott Hansen is a world of his own. Like, good Lord. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
You don't know where he started. He was probably breaking into Peters, just trying to do some shows when he was grinding his teeth through. You guys are much closer than you think, Aaron Nagler.
Hardly.
Somebody call you a 50-year-old weirdo.
I mean, if the shoe fits, you got to wear it. So. No doubt about it. Billy Schmid, you'll be able to hear him 97.3 The Game, all of their draft coverage, the Packers Radio Network throughout the weekend. As Billy indicates, he'll be on with us here at Cheesehead TV.
Oh, yeah.
At times throughout. We will be live Thursday night. Corey will be downtown Green Bay at the Lyric Room, which is attached to Stage 1. You'll find information in the description of this video down below. There's a link. You can check it out. If you're in the Green Bay area, come on out. $5 at the door. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have Carry the G specials. We have raffles. We got artwork being created. We got Packers fans from all over the state coming out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're not in the Green Bay area, I hope you'll join us here on the Cheesehead TV YouTube channel, live streaming all 3 days of the draft as we do each and every year with tons of Packers fans from around the world and maybe a special guest or two, including Billy. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You get the special guests. I mean, I don't know if this lyric room is as close to Kay Adams' favorite place in Green Bay as some are particularly hoping, but I'm excited for the special guests.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Billy, cannot thank you enough for the time, man. I'll talk to you next week when we have a whole new group of Packers to talk about.
You better believe it. I'll see you this weekend for the draft.